Welcome back to the Mom and Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kat. And on this episode, I am joined by Courtney Costello. She is a licensed master social worker with nearly 15 years of experience in the field. And she is coming on today to talk about her own experience through birth trauma, through postpartum preeclampsia, and how going to therapy helped her to process everything, helped her to get back to herself and find the healing that we haven't talked a whole lot about postpartum preeclampsia on the Mom and Mind podcast, so I'm really glad she's on to share her story. Before she had her own son in 2023, she predominantly worked with families and children. And after becoming a mother, she became professionally and personally passionate about maternal mental health and well-being. After going to therapy for her own postpartum challenges, including the birth trauma and PTSD, she was inspired to make changes that allowed her to be a support for others, combining education and lived experience. Courtney is now working as a perinatal mental health counselor in Buffalo. She also runs an online maternal mental health training for other clinicians who may be interested in learning more. And this year, she's also acting as a co-leader for Buffalo, New York's local climb through Postpartum Support International. So let's jump in and meet Courtney. Hi, Courtney. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, Dr. Kat. It's really great to be here. Thank you.
Yes, I'm grateful that you're coming on to share your experience that I think a lot of people would be able to hear parts of themselves in. So please start wherever you'd like.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's been really important to me to talk about it in my personal life because when I was in a space where I really needed to, I found that not everybody was able to listen, or maybe they were willing, but there was always like advice attached, or I don't know. They weren't like prepared to fully take on what I had to say, which is understandable. And I think a lot of people just wanted to make me feel better. So it is nice to be in this space where this is the point. And I have listened to many of your episodes that were really helpful to me in my postpartum experience and just hearing other people. So like super grateful that this exists and that I am here. And yeah, I would love to share my story. Yeah. So I have one son, he's 2.5, and all I wanted was to be a mom. And honestly, like my experience threw me a lot of curveballs, but throughout I loved being a mom. That never wavered. And pregnancy was relatively uneventful. I think it was all the things that people expect. The things that we hear is generally how mine went. It was swollen ankles and heartburn and uncomfortable and not sleeping, but generally uneventful, even though I don't know if any pregnancy is uneventful. It's a wild ride, but yeah, but it was not complicated in that way. There was no high risk. There was nothing to be on alert. And so I was always very terrified to give birth because that was certainly a place where I did not have any sense of expectation, again, other than the collective story of it'll hurt. And I remember going around to anybody and everybody who would tell me about their experience, but I would find a filtered version. And I don't know if that's because I hadn't done it yet and they didn't want to freak me out, but it was very much, it's like, sure, it hurts, but like, then your baby's here and it's great. Or you get an epidural and you take a little nap and then it's great. And that was really all I heard. So I went in. The plan, there was a blizzard coming. I live in Buffalo, New York. So it's a wintry place. There was a blizzard coming. And so the plan was to be induced the morning before it was meant to roll in, but I went into labor naturally then the sort of night of. Yeah, we get to the hospital at 1 a.m. and that was like another place of confusion. That was probably my first point of confusion because I remember calling the hospital to say, do I come? This is what's happening. Contractions are this far apart. And their response was like, if you want, which I didn't know what to do with that. So we went. So yeah, we went to the hospital. Again, everything started uneventful, but it was 1 a.m. So I was running on a long time of no sleep. I remember being like unbelievably disoriented. I probably slept minutes at a time. Basically between contractions, I'd take these little naps and then be woken back up. So like every 2 to 4 minutes for hours and hours. And if that was all that happened, it would be okay. But the hospital experience just wasn't what I expected. And this just might reflect, again, a kind of a lack of dialogue or maybe like naivete on my part. But I think I imagine this like comfy, warm, taken care of space. And what I got was a hospital and a clinical setting. And of course, But I just wasn't somehow mentally prepared for that. We did all the classes in the hospital tour and like I tried to prep myself in all those ways, but it was just different. And again, that all would have been okay. But I think the thing that like really threw me was so tired to the point of like hallucinating, not knowing if I'm awake or asleep. And then I
Oh,
just had a nurse who was unkind to the point of being cruel, to the
oh,
point of mocking like how I was pushing, asking why I was
what?
crying. Yeah,
Oh,
she was tough. And I
wow.
didn't know. Now I do. Now you can ask for a different nurse, but I just did not know, was too vulnerable, too much pain to advocate, really.
Mm.
Yeah, she was saying things like, you got to stop with these little half pushes, or why are you breathing like that?
Whoa.
Yeah, there's a needle in my spine with the epidural. And she's like, why are you crying? What's the problem?
Oh
And
my gosh.
tough lady. Yeah. So that in a space where I really needed someone to be like nice, it was just the opposite in
Mm-hmm.
every way. And
Mm-hmm.
that was tough. And my poor husband, I like will never forget this image of looking up at him and wanting that support. And there's just fear in his face too, because we're both have never been in this space. And oof, yeah, yeah. And the epidural didn't work. So like my beautiful epidural nap never came and
Oh
there was no
no.
rest. And but again, first time around, I didn't know if it was working, not working. I didn't want the thing in my back again. I didn't want to be yelled at for doing it
Oh
wrong.
gosh.
Yeah. So we just kind of, I don't know, we just kept waiting. And I just remember the pain getting more and more intense. And at some point, staff is whispering in one corner of the room, and I don't know what's happening. And there's a lot of fear that something's wrong with my son or that he's in distress, but no one's communicating, which was also like a very reoccurring theme that I was not prepared for, of just a sense of not knowing what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there was, yeah, a lot of fear that came in that. And not to dismiss everything I went through, but essentially, long story short, on the birth, he came, he was delivered, he was safe, he was fine, he was not in distress, all was well. By like clinical measures, I was doing just fine. And so, like, we were okay. And we get sent to the mother baby unit. Everyone there is lovely. I'm like
Okay.
so grateful for this hospital.
Good.
But at some point in all of this, the blizzard has rolled in.
Oh.
And it's 2 days before Christmas, my son was born. So we're set to leave Christmas Day, but everybody's trapped. Which, like, at that point, so yeah, by this time after delivery, the blizzard rolls in. So he's born 2 days before Christmas. By Christmas Day, we were meant to be discharged, but it was very iffy. So all the hospital staff is trapped. They've been there for days. Everyone's working. They're on their second, third day in a row. They
So like
can't
they're
get.
not leaving, nobody's coming in. Okay.
Yeah, this is dark, but at some point, one of the nurses told us the only people coming into this hospital are in body bags.
Oh.
It was a really bad storm.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, I know that was heavy.
You did not need to hear that.
I know. Yeah, truly, I didn't need to hear that, but like
No.
it's, yeah, it was awful. People were not in good shape in the city. The city was not in good shape. The roads were not in good shape. So, like, this there was a sense of me, my husband, my son are in the hospital. We are safe. We are like in this bubble. We are not hearing a lot of the news from the outside world of what's
Mm-hmm.
going on and how devastating this storm really was. Yeah, it was impacting a lot of people in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like staff is there. The nurses are the ones like emptying the trash can in the room and like doing, like bringing food from the kitchen, which is also like there's no food coming in, and so now there's like food shortages.
Whoa.
There's no hot water. So like I didn't shower after birth for days. Just like little things that sort
Yeah.
of impact the experience. And at the same time, I was in a place of we were so grateful for any food to eat.
Oh,
We were
sure.
so grateful to be like in our bubble and safe, and like that the nurses were so kind and taking care of us when they're not home with their families for Christmas. And it was just
Yeah.
like a very blissful time in a very stressful, bigger bubble, and
Yeah.
in a very odd juxtaposition at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then this point came where we had to decide, are we going to leave the hospital because they're saying you're ready for discharge? They're not saying you got to get out of here. But the morning of the planned discharge, staff came around and said the pediatric doctor says it's too cold for babies to leave. No babies are leaving this hospital today. So we're like, okay. No problem.
Uh-huh.
We'll sit tight. And then an hour later, maybe 2 hours later, they're like, no, he said it's fine now, which like nothing that we knew of dramatically changed outside, certainly not the temperature.
Right.
So it just became this question of, okay, what do we do? And then we were polling the outside world for the first time and asking, like, how are the roads? Can people get through? Is it snowing here? Getting some like mixed opinions. And then new staff start coming into the hospital to relieve the staff who've been stuck. And they're saying, oh, we live near where you are. If you take these roads, it's totally fine. It's clear. It's not snowing anymore. It's not going to be snowing for a while. You're good. Now's the time. You should go. And we heard that from multiple people. My husband's out like at the nurse's station asking who just came in, what's it like, where'd you come from, what roads did you take, and over again we're being told the same thing of, it's good, now is your chance. And we weren't necessarily like desperate to get home, but again, food isn't coming in. There's no hot water. I had pets at home. The dog was taken care of, but like the cats are home. Is the power out? Is their feeder running? Like it's starting to get stressful if we're gone for too long. And no one was going to be able to get to our house. The driveway is not shoveled. No one can just go check on the pets with this blizzard. So anyway, because we're like repeatedly getting the same advice of, you're good, now's your chance, we decide to take it and we don't make it. So we don't make it home. Yeah. So we were already terrified for the day that we were going to put our newborn, teeny tiny, fragile baby in the car for the first time.
Yeah.
And now we're like post blizzard, mid blizzard is like a break in the weather. And so we pull out of the hospital parking ramp and it's like blue skies, right? There's no snow. The roads are bumpy with snow, but like it's packed. It's relatively clear. Like it's drivable. We're used to living here. Like we know what to do. It's not beautiful, but it's fine. You just got to go slow kind of thing. And then we get not even halfway and we're in a whiteout. So 15 minutes later, we're in a whiteout and man, this was such a scary moment that it makes me emotional to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I was sitting in the back seat with my son and I just remember looking out the window and I'm like, I can't see anything, literally anything. I don't know where we are. I don't know if there's other cars on the road. I don't know how far we are from home. And I'm like, how is my husband seeing out the front window?
Yeah.
I don't know that he can. And so he's got windshield wipers, but I'm like, I don't know if that matters. And so at some point, I had also been texting with family members and saying, we're going to go. We're being told it's safe. There's a break in the storm. Now is the time, or who knows how long we're going to be here. It could be days. What does that mean for everybody? So my brother had texted me and said something about he just shoveled his driveway. And he's about halfway from the hospital to my own house. And so I say to my husband, as I'm looking at just white outside, if you cannot get us home, you have to tell me now and I will figure out where we are and I will figure out where we can go. I will make another plan from the back seat while you white knuckle us through here. Man, and he said he could just hear the fear in my voice that told him we're not making it. So I call my brother who just shoveled his driveway somehow and he says, yeah, come here. It's closer. The roads are clear. They literally just plowed, like somehow you can get through. So this is fuzzy. I wasn't behind the wheel. I don't know how we got there, but like we get there and they have a little 2-year-old at the time and my sister-in-law is pregnant. So they're halfway done with the nursery. So my son has a bassinet to sleep in. Yeah. And I like take my first shower and she made us like, my sister-in-law bakes lasagna for us, which is crazy. And it's Christmas Day, which is just every family in Buffalo canceled Christmas like that. No one was supposed to see each other. We slept on the floor of the room because it was an empty nursery with basically just a bassinet. But they had everything else that we could need. They've got like wipes and diaper genies and a bassinet. I couldn't believe they had a bassinet. And so like we get somewhere safe where
that's nuts.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. But like
it's a lot.
There's so much like kindness in my story too. Of my brother and my sister-in-law just being like, obviously come here, which I can't imagine they'd say nosed out in the storm, but certainly they didn't have to make lasagna. And then like we had friends whose parents own a plow service. And so they came through and they plowed our driveway in case we were going to be able to get home.
That's
And
cool.
it snowed so much while we were at my brother's house that neighbors like walked through the snow-packed streets and plowed our driveway a second time, came with
Oh,
shovels, like a handful of
that's
people. And
amazing.
yeah, it was, man. So like when I think about my story and like what I've shared thus far, so many moments of fear, but so much kindness from other people.
Mm,
Genuinely, like when I
right.
say we were so
Beautiful.
grateful for a hot meal in the hospital, like I mean that. So like these other things are so big.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like I tell my story in three parts, and that's part two. So,
Uh-huh.
part one is birth, and two is the blizzard. And then part three is we make it back home the next day, and all seems relatively well. And no one's been able to meet the baby yet, except my brother and his family, but
Mhm.
no one could come to the hospital or our house or anything like that. And I'm 10 days postpartum when my parents get to meet my son.
Mm.
And while they're there, something seems off to me. I'm feeling okay, but I'm seeing like a floater in my vision. And a thing that I
Mm.
forgot to mention before is when I left the hospital, multiple nurses said to me, "Does the midwife know your blood pressure's this high?" And I
Oh,
said, "I don't know. Are you telling the midwife?" I'm not sure. But
right.
then they discharged me, and there was no discussion of really much except your blood pressure could increase and look out for a handful of things. Call us if it does. Floaters in your vision are one of those things. Have a good day. Yeah. And I
All
don't even
right.
know what it means. I'm just
Right.
like,
You're
sure.
like,
Okay.
okay, we're
I
in the
don't know. I got
blizzard.
to figure out how
Right.
to like change a diaper. Okay. Yeah. Day 10. There's little spots in my vision. I wait till my parents leave. I talk to my husband about it. I said, I don't know. They said to call. I call and they say, "Can you take your blood pressure?" It is New Year's Eve. And no, I don't. Everything's
Right.
closed. It's nighttime. Everything's closed. I don't know where would I go to take my blood pressure. They're like, "Oh, do you have a pharmacy nearby?" And so I'm calling pharmacies to say, Are you open? Do you have a blood pressure cuff?" And no, everything's closed. It's 7 p.m. on New Year's Eve.
Wow.
So thankfully, my in-laws live close. My mother-in-law has a blood pressure cuff, like an at-home little one. So we get it from her. I call the office back. Here's my number. I don't even know if this is like an accurate reading with my little at-home cuff and all
Hmm.
that. And
Hmm.
they're like, "Oh, you have to come to the ER." And again, I like don't know why. I don't know. Am I like, how scary is this? How concerned should I be? And they actually don't say come to the ER. They say you have to come back to like mother baby and we need to check you. And I say, is this like where I was staying before I was discharged? Can my son come? Does my husband come? Are we going to be like in a room where we were before? And they're like, "Yep, totally. Everybody can come, stay at the hospital." We get there, that's not the case. Yeah. And again, it's late December. So we're in the height of, and he's 10 days old. So it's like cold and flu and COVID and
Yeah. Yeah.
RSV
Yeah.
and all of that. And we just brought our little baby into the hospital. And it's only then that they tell me what they're going to do. So essentially, they're worried about preeclampsia. But they tell me, we don't really know what causes preeclampsia. So here you are. It was brought on by birth because you didn't actually have it all through pregnancy. So it's postpartum preeclampsia, and we really don't know what causes that. It probably would have just came eventually, but usually birth resolves it. That didn't happen for you. You have to get a treatment.
Okay.
Okay. So I send my son and my husband back home because we learned that I'm going to be confined to the bed for 24 hours on a magnesium drip. I'm not allowed to get out of the bed by myself. If I'm going to use the bathroom, I have to call for assistance. And I can't use the bathroom that's 5 feet from the bed. I have to use a little commode while they watch me. And certainly, I don't want my baby in this environment. So they go home, and I just sob the entire stay. Because, and if I say my story's in three parts, this is the worst part. Because to be without this baby who just lived in my body is insane. And we're not meant to be apart, and yet we are. And so it was, and nobody could give me answers. And there's this image that stands out to me. There's a little whiteboard at the end of my bed that says congratulations on it. And I'm there for like medical treatment to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
helped.
Yeah.
And they're like, "You had a baby." And I'm like, that's not what this is. And so, yeah, I'm trapped in the bed. I'm still bleeding. It's again only 10
Right.
days.
It's
Like,
still all fresh.
yes, quite fresh and not a lot of like privacy or dignity to be found, and just a really tough, lonely terrifying stay. And they also start to tell me things like when they say they don't know what causes preeclampsia, and then they tell me you could go into kidney failure, you could have seizures, so we pad the bed for you.
Oh my
Like it's very
gosh.
flippant. Yeah. And so
That's
I
a
don't
terrifying thing to hear.
horrifying. With no understanding of there's different levels to this and here's where you are. It's just like it
Right.
could at any moment you
Worst,
could
here's the
go
worst case scenario
yeah.
and nothing
And I
else. Wow.
exactly.
Oh,
Yeah, so I just am bracing for the worst, but they're like, the magnesium usually helps. And, but if it doesn't, we'll just like, do it again, which like, I don't, how does that help then?
there's
But
no confidence in that.
very little.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and each round is 24 hours. And I'm exclusively nursing at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I've never met a breast pump. And then I
Mm-hmm.
do. And I have to pump in the hospital. Like I have to learn how to use a pump in the
Right.
hospital bed that I'm stuck to. It was just
Yeah.
a very long 24 hours. And thank God, like this treatment did its job and I left, but good Lord, it was a day.
And you
Yeah.
don't, so you don't know really what's happening fully. You only know the worst case scenario. You're not sure when it's going to end.
Yep.
And that feeling of I'm the food source for this child and
Oh
they're
my
not
God.
here is a wild feeling.
Yeah. I'm the food source. I don't know how he's going to take to for the hospital did send my husband home with a couple of little formula samples, but we don't know how he's going to react. It turns out like he did okay. And also he was covered in like a rash on his stomach after. So, but it was the only option at the time.
Right,
So
right.
what do you do? And it's New Year's Eve. So all the stores are not open. It's the middle of the night at this point. It is probably like midnight by the time I get to the hospital. Yeah. So just a lot happening there.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes. And so I eventually I go home and I very quickly do not want to be away from my little family
Hmm.
again,
Hmm.
ever.
Hmm.
But I'm sure you can see how quickly this manifests into
Yeah.
anxiety.
Don't no
Yeah.
doubt. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I just feel like we're not meant to be apart. And I just want to stay with him and watch him like a hawk and know that he's good. And at the same time, I have no sense if I'm okay because they sent me home with some medication. But again, they make it sound like I'm like knocking on death's door and they have no clue the cause and therefore how can you perfectly know a treatment. And it's very gray to me to
Hmm.
the point
Hmm.
where we have my husband's aunt is a nurse and so she came over and did a blood pressure reading, explained preeclampsia,
Oh,
let me know I'm okay.
lovely.
Yeah,
Good.
but like why did we have to seek someone on the outside? Lovely, again, lots of helpers in my story who are just like
Hmm.
amazing people, but it would have been nice to know that like a few days before because we really thought if I don't sleep enough, if I'm too stressed, am I just going to like spontaneously combust at any moment?
You're like walking a tightrope.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Which also then like it manifests into I'm having nightmares all the time about my health, about my son's health. There's
Mm.
a whole bunch of intrusive thoughts going on, but more than anything, it's nightmares. I can't like close my eyes at night without just having like being on the verge of panic. So all of this. And I still love being a mom. I'm
Hmm.
obsessed with my kid. Like, it's
Hmm.
the greatest thing in the
Hmm.
world. And we're still in our bubble because that Buffalo winter was rough. And we are just in our house and we got nowhere to go and we don't need to go anywhere. And I just love this time. And then the nightmares, the panic, the anxiety. And I realized like it's not going away.
That
Yeah.
like fear that, yeah.
Yeah.
Did it feel
It's,
like fear and like running in the background all the time? Even though you were like happy with your son, what was, there's
yeah,
a
I
bunch
think
of
it
stuff
was.
going on.
Yeah, it was still a fear. It's very hard to articulate now because I do think it was for my own well being, but that quickly snowballs into then I'm not here
Hmm.
for my
Oh,
son.
uh-huh. Right.
And gosh, I like love this little baby so much, but will he ever know me?
Mm.
There was a lot rolled into it. So it looked like some of the more kind of typical anxiety manifestations that you hear of. I was every little noise he made sleeping next to our bed. I was on it. If my husband was the one changing diapers, doing a bottle, I'm there to say, I don't know if that's right. And is he
Uh-huh.
okay? And
Hmm.
is the bathwater the right temperature? And I
Hmm.
just needed very much to have that control to feel like we're good. Yeah. So I don't know. It took some different avenues, but when I think of the fear, I think I was also having a lot of flashbacks to the hospital. Not even the blizzard, not even labor, but just me being in the hospital alone. And so I think like It was a very straightforward connection of I'm laying in my own bed and then laying in the hospital bed. It just was too parallel for me. They would always send me to a place. So, yeah, again, like things aren't getting better after all these months. Nights are always like a struggle.
How long are we talking now?
I was, I think, 4 months postpartum when when I looked for a therapist. So,
What kind of finally brought you to that either realization or understanding that like, hey, something like what was the thing or things?
yeah, I had been in therapy in the past, so it wasn't like a totally foreign notion to me. And it was for very different things. But I think, again, just, oh, it's been 3, 4 months and I'm living as if it's day 10 all over again,
Yeah.
every day on repeat. I am that on edge, that stressed, that like
Yeah.
worried.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was just really this cumulative impact of, I don't know, feeling that way for too long.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the 3 month mark, I'm meant to return to work and I extend my leave and I was working in a school and it was like a very nice position where I could do that.
Mhm.
But I'm like, okay, there's a lot of things telling me that I just should be looking at this a little bit more. Yeah. And thank God I did because I remember leaving the hospital too after being there for the preeclampsia. And on my way out, they're saying, oh, see you next time. See you for the next baby. And it goes right in line with them saying congratulations. And
Yeah. Right.
I'm like, I'm never
Read the
coming
room.
back. Yeah, truly. Yeah. And I just yelled out to them, like, no, I am not coming back here. And they're like, oh, come on. But yeah. That was another big piece of why did I want to go to therapy? Why did I recognize the need? Because I, on a near daily basis, was going to my husband and saying, we always wanted 2 kids. I'm so sad we'll never have 2 kids. I am grieving this baby that will never exist. I can't believe like mourning. I was in deep grief
Mm.
over this like future loss that we were going to have because I was just not going through that again. And so I wasn't even going to therapy to say, help me get ready for another kid. It was, I got to look at all this stuff
Yeah.
and make peace with the fact that I will never have a second child.
Mm.
Yeah. So I don't know. The woman that I saw, the therapist, was the perfect fit.
Oh.
Yeah, like in every single way, and guided me through so much. And I like quote unquote graduated and finished, and just the nightmare stopped, the panic stopped. Some control tendencies remain, but that might just be inherent. But I still was not like, great, I am cured and we will have a second child. That I knew there was more to do and just sorting out in my personal life, meaning just understanding that I wasn't ready for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my kid at this point was still very little. He wasn't even a year old. So, like, I didn't need to be thinking about it yet. Yeah. That was, I don't know, that was so important in my story and so necessary and so helpful. And again, like talking about not having a space to really like fully open up and put all these feelings, like, what a beautiful gift to have that. And at the same time, in my personal life, I start questioning, do I want to go back to the job that I keep delaying and keep extending my leave? Because at some point I take 18 months and I know I have to make a decision. And I ultimately decide I'm not going back there. And it was just twofold. I felt like such a different person in every single way that I didn't fit into that space in the same way.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Like
I like
you.
really liked that job.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it wasn't the same fit. I don't know. I just fundamentally felt different in a lot of ways. And then which was a lot of hemming and hawing on that choice too, because I carried the insurance and then I was mad all the time about society and the structure of it all. And that
For
I
sure.
couldn't just stay home with my baby and
Yep.
had to be a trade-off. And yeah, which led me to feel like there's gaps in services and not enough support. And what do I do with this? I need to channel it somewhere. And so I have decided to get my PMHC. Yeah, which I'm still working on. I need more time working specifically with moms because my whole history has been with families and mostly kids. But yeah, that's what I'm doing now, working with perinatal population. And it's so lovely and it is such the right fit and it's so good.
That's amazing. Right. So the fit that whatever you were doing in the previous position, that's a significant life shift to feel like you have changed even something that you care about isn't the right fit. Could have potentially made you miserable to force yourself to go back into that. And it's interesting how these experiences do change you in really deep ways. And I'm sure there's a lot in there. But right, you don't know this is going to happen. And then something happens and it does. It just does change you.
Yeah. And again, like in some ways, I expected that. And then in so many giant ways, I just completely blindsided by how different kind of the world was and my view of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's like where I landed. And I don't know how to like, it's a very long story and I don't know like a nice succinct way to tell it, but all of these different things and going to therapy and sharing my story. And then I feel like I have been so much more open with other women in my life and therefore they are more open. And then
Right.
also working with other moms or soon to be moms and hearing their stories. And I feel so privileged to now have this collection. And simultaneously, because I've already had a baby, I have correct expectations in some ways. You
Mm.
know, I know what a hospital is. I know what birth was like in some ways. It always goes different, but
Yeah.
yeah, I have some correct expectations and just openness and new space in the world. And so now, somehow, the sum total of all of that was being ready to have another child and making that choice with my husband and knowing that. So I am pregnant with my second.
Congrats.
Yeah, and we're really excited, and it was like a thing that felt so impossible not even all that long ago.
Mm.
Yeah, and now we get to I didn't want to have to make fear-based choices that run my life, and now I don't have to. And yeah, we're going to have this new little baby, and I fully understand that pregnancy and birth and everything to come may trigger all this stuff that I've already lived through, but I just feel so much more equipped to navigate it now. And yeah, that's where all roads have left.
It's really amazing to go from not being able to see this as a possibility. And therapy is amazing for these reasons. And maybe there
Mhm.
through whatever your own process you could have gotten there. But there's a way in which the therapy does what it does. It does its magic. And it's not magic, but to be able to work through in whatever way you did with that therapist and with yourself to get to a point where you now have the option
Mhm.
to make a decision as opposed to the decision being made for you in that other way is incredible because you didn't see it. It wasn't, this path wasn't possible, and
Mhm.
how scary things felt.
Oh yeah, I completely counted it out. Again, grieving
Mm-hmm.
this loss that I felt around it. And yeah, yeah, I can't I know that I'm now in this role as well, but I can't say enough for the power of therapy and like a good therapist and your right fit. And
Right.
it did work wonders. It felt like magic in ways that now I can look at that nurse who I'm like, she was awful,
Yeah.
so terrible. I still believe that she was not kind, but did she do her job? Did she make sure I was safe? Did she make sure the baby was safe? And I couldn't have thought that way without sitting with somebody else guiding me through that. And there's just like a million examples of that where now I carried all these feelings of sort of that was unfair and other people get this like lovely experience. And now I know that's not true, but that was all I was hearing. And yeah,
Right.
but I just don't hold those feelings anymore. And it was honestly, it's interesting to tell my story today because I feel like I have so much distance from it, not just
Mm-hmm.
like time passing. And people always talk about, oh, you forget your birth experience and then you'll want another. That was never going to be me. I really had to like work
Yeah.
through this.
I remember all of
Um,
it. Yeah.
yeah, really do. But at the same time, it's become like not fuzzy. It's still there, but I had to dig through my memory to be able to tell it today when I thought this was going to be like a raw wound top of mind forever. Yeah.
Right.
So that's like a cool thing.
Right. That part of healing is just so amazing to me. Like that you can live with something, it doesn't rule your life in that way. It doesn't seem possible. It just doesn't when you're in
Mhm.
it and it feels that raw and that horrible and that forever. It's really hard to see past it. And you still, even in the therapy process in the beginning, maybe the therapist holds the hope for you and with you to some extent, but we are just like, all right, maybe I'll be able to feel better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you do.
Yeah.
It's an amazing process. And it sounds like so enough that it helped you to get into the specialty yourself.
Yeah, which also a very big surprise in my life. I was never intending to do anything clinical. I was
Mm-hmm.
a school social worker. Before that, I worked in a mental health clinic, but it was a step to become a school social worker. And I thought that was like the end all be all. But yeah, no, everything changed.
Amazing. And it sounds like this all feels in line with you. You're leading climbs for the Climb Out of Darkness with PSI. You're doing this work. You have online trainings. Like you've really, this is what you do now.
Yeah, which is like a wild thing to hear reflected back to me, but that's true. And yeah, it does feel very integrated just to who I am now without it running my life in the way that it was.
I mean, it's so, what is it like to, in some way, be on the other side, so to speak, and like supporting other people
Mm,
through maybe similar stuff, or even if it's dissimilar?
yeah, I think what you just said about the therapist can hold the hope. I feel like I can walk that line of helping clients to get to the other side in some ways without the rainbows and butterflies and like delusions that I was being fed
Right.
at a time where I was like, get this away from me. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't hear any of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so just holding that hope and knowing that like it is possible because I have somehow gotten to the other side. And not that I'm like
Mm-hmm.
the archetype example here, but I'm not the only one. And
Yeah.
so it therefore is possible. And I don't really share my story with clients,
Mm-hmm.
certainly, but there are parts where I'm like, oof, this is really familiar.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sting. It just feels like solidarity. Oh, yeah, me too. And lots of
Yeah.
other people, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
be okay, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's very connecting. I feel like once you're pregnant or become a parent, you hit postpartum, there's a club that forms for sure. And you don't have to be in this world doing this kind of work to be in the club. It's just like very uniting in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that there's a lot in there that you went through, and we got the short version of it of all of that you went through. But still, even given that, I can see how powerful it was and how life changing it was for you. And I know that people who are listening to your story will be able to hear themselves in it, at least in part, and hopefully hold on to that same kind of hope that they can get through stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I just appreciate having a space to say the whole thing. It's not a thing I've done in quite some time since my own therapy experience. So it's interesting to think about it in from a healed space. It feels really different and really powerful and cool to think about that's everything that's happened and here I am and we're gonna do it again and we'll see how it goes. But it all just feels better now. So yeah, thank you. Because I meant it when I said I found your podcast at the right time and it was
Oh,
so helpful to me. If I can like put my story in the collection and somebody hears it,
mhm.
that feels really full circle. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm so glad. Thank you for that. And thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you.
If you'd like to get connected with Courtney, you can find her on Instagram at Courtney underscore Costello underscore LMSW. You can also find her at autocounseling.com/office. And of course, if you know anybody who could benefit from hearing Courtney's story, please share this. And just in general, share these episodes. And while you're sharing on whatever podcast platform you listen from, take a moment to give this podcast a star rating and or a review so people can know what you think of this resource and decide for themselves if this would be a good resource for them. I really appreciate you being here with us today. Until next time.